Hello, I call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Board members present here tonight, we have Ted Gergen, myself, Dana Powers, Steve Brown, and Jack Nicolai. Nick Poloni is absent tonight. Administration present. Okay, we have Dr. Vicki King, excited to announce her very first meeting.
Very first, yes.
And Marquez on the
Oh yeah, sorry Marquez.
ginormous TV. And then visitors, make sure that you've signed in by the front door. And please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will take a motion on the agenda.
So moved.
I move that we accept the agenda as printed.
But whatever, you can fight over it later.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
Get you every time.
You do.
You guys are tricky. I do not have a president's report except for welcoming Dr. Vicki King and clerk.
I have no clerk's report, and also a very special welcome to Dr. Vicki King.
Oh, yes. And then CISA 2 update. This will be our first.
Sure. Very briefly, a few items, and I thank Dan Hanrahan, who's Executive Director of CISA 2. The CISA 2 Language and Culture Center of Excellence is in discussion for a possible partnership with the City University of New York. They have developed a curriculum for English learners that we feel would benefit all the districts. Also, CISA 2 has restructured the superintendent PAC meetings for 2022-23 to alternate between all virtual or all in person. And the PAC Planning Committee has also identified possible topics for the in-service meetings. And finally, there are 20 superintendent changes in the CISA 2 region. Of course, 16 are new to the superintendency. Dan Hanrahan and the liaisons have begun their outreach and their one-on-one visits to each of those districts. And just so everyone knows, I'm on the CISA boards. I serve as vice chair, and we have a new chair of CISA 2 of the Board of Control, Marion Vinny. And so I want to thank everyone on CISA 2, particularly all the administrators there.
Very good.
Thank you.
Committee reports. This is in a different section, so. Yep. Do you want me to go?
I think because we do have two updates.
Yep.
There's the policy and community relations first.
Yes. Were you at that one?
No.
You wanna?
Sure. The meeting was called to order. Should I just go through? I'm
Yeah. How do you wanna?
Yeah, how do you?
Usually Connie would handle it at the end.
Okay, yeah.
So how do you?
If we could add it here, because I think some of the information that we're going to do in these committee reports will be helpful for the rest of the agenda. So if he just wants to summarize what the, what
So
we.
not reading it, but like.
No, correct, yeah.
A one-liner.
Okay,
yes,
sure,
whatever.
sure.
Brief.
Oh, okay,
Very,
thank you.
yeah, very brief.
Okay. The committee members present, Jack Nicolai and myself, and also Dr. King. There were no other members there. The committee discussed creating a naming policy and procedures for district property and facilities. And we had an interesting discussion, and Jack, do you want to add anything to that?
No, you're doing fine.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
That's it.
Okay, so no action. Very
And
good.
there was no action, no, that's correct.
And then the ad hoc committee, do you want to?
And I believe.
Yeah,
Ted, you wanna-
I'll talk a little bit about the ad hoc committee, which is obviously like a kind of a not like a traditional committee. It was created to discuss the feasibility of adding a school resource officer to Salem. That was proposed in the June conversation. It came up at the June school board. So the subcommittee was created of Steve, Jack, myself, Vicki, and Ryan were both present. We spent a great deal of time talking about
So Sorry, he was.
Sorry, we were just trying to do, he was like playing games back here, it was confusing.
Wait.
That's all right. Again, so we talked a little bit about the idea of having the presence of a school resource officer, a police officer liaison here at Salem. And I think that at the conclusion of the meeting, we really felt that that part of the conversation, while we really obviously value student safety and security, there's a lot more to that conversation than just adding a school resource officer. So making that conversation part of a bigger, broader conversation about where we want to go as a district and as an organization, and really valuing the community input in that conversation. We didn't feel like totally equipped to handle that conversation just as a board and administrative team. So
Much longer than
much
one
longer
month.
conversation, and making sure that we have an opportunity to get community input in that conversation.
Yeah, and if I could just add one thing, we also discussed, of course, in addition to the strategic plan and other things related to the district, that we should consider at least to have a community meeting, inviting the community in for any additional discussion. So if we were to decide as a board to have a school resource officer, that we need the input of the community, and that's vital.
Absolutely. Yep. So it's not we don't want to make
There was no action
quick
taken.
decision.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
so it's just
Yep.
lots of next steps. Perfect. Good meeting. Treasurer's report.
All right, Marquez, you can't even kick me if I say something wrong right now. So, all right, let's take a look at the treasurer's report dated June 2022. General fund cash account with a balance of $374,442.95. Credit cards with a balance of $13,111.69. EBC Flex and HRA cash account with a balance of $13,063.39. Fund 46, our capital improvement fund, with a balance of $2,082,956.50. Petty cash of $300. LGIP, $4,509,713.88. And then something that will probably look new to everybody on the board is this Fund 49, the WISC fund. And that's an additional fund that's created in anticipation of the bond note. So that has a balance of $18,309,841.96. Marquez, is there anything that you want to share about that new Fund 49?
Yeah, so just a reminder, a refresher, we did issue a bond anticipation note for 18.3 million back on, I believe it was June 13th or 14th. So we did receive a bond anticipation note, or BAN, for 18.3 million on that date. We are set to pay that off next month. And back on July 13th, we actually issued our, what they call the general obligation refunding bond. So we'll essentially be paying back that bond anticipation note, but then we'll have another influx of cash. So you'll see some movement in that account, but for the most part, we'll be investing that money until we need it for the projects. And our goal at this point is to make somewhere in the range of $600,000 on those investments, and all that money will be able to be used on our referendum projects. So obviously we don't need all the money up front now, but we locked in at a good interest rate. So I think we're doing the best that we can at this point.
Thank you. So that provides a grand asset total for June of 2022 of $25,303,430.37. I'd like to move to approve the treasurer's report dated June 2022 as presented.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to present the payment of accounts payable bills dated June 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2022. These include checks numbered 71135 through 71199 and 202101049 through 2122000044. You might have noticed a couple oddities there. 71135 check number is actually from the prior month. And that was a voided check that was originally issued on May 25th of 2022, and it was reissued at 71199. And then both 71167 and 71188 are missing checks, so they don't show up in the check in the check descriptions, because the description on the check actually rolled over, like digitally, like it went to the next line, and so it issued it as a second check. So those are missing checks that, because the description was too long and just ran over onto the next check. So the total for checks was $723,913.01. I'd like to move to approve the payment of accounts payable bills from June 1 through June 30, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, and then just some highlights from the monthly revenue and expense report. Again, this is something that came from the audits to go through this revenue and expense report, just to make sure that we have a good comparison of where we were at last year to where we're at this year. Also to remind ourselves that these numbers are in flux a little bit. They're not audited numbers, so there are some minor changes that can take place. But overall, our revenues came in at $4,000 higher than expected. So that's 0.02% higher than our budgeted revenue. And our expenses came in at $439,000 lower than budgeted, so 2.65% lower. So again, we're tracking very well going into this upcoming school year.
Great.
Anything to add, Marquez? Yeah.
No, I think you did a good job, Ted. I just wanted to mention that, so we did end the year with a positive balance. And we do have a couple options with that. One, we could roll it over into our fund balance, which would allow us a little more cushion in future years, but also hopefully mean that we wouldn't have to short-term borrow money as much in the future. That would be my recommendation with what to do with it. We could also increase our Fund 46 transfer. We are about to transfer 2.8 million, which I think is a very good amount. But we could increase that if we wanted. At this point, I would recommend that we just roll it over into the fund balance and increase our fund balance percentage a little bit. I think it's best with some of the uncertainty in the future with the state funding, but if anybody has any thoughts or opinions on that, I'm all ears.
Is that a board action thing?
Agree.
I would agree. I think anytime we can minimize that short-term borrowing,
Yeah.
especially with interest rates, steadily increasing.
Right, and also Marquez, as we all know, we don't get the state funding until well after the school year starts. That could also be used, and it's good to have that.
Yeah. And that'll actually be an item later about the short-term borrowing, so I'll bring that up again in a little bit.
So there's no action we need to take with that recommendation?
No, I just kind of wanted to keep you guys in the loop, and that's what I was planning to do unless anybody had wanted to change course.
No, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please review the minutes of we did that one, right? The special school board meeting dated 6/28/22, and then I'll take a motion.
I move to accept the special school board meeting from June 28, 2022, the 6:30 meeting as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
Abstention, and motion carries. Next.
Sure, I move to approve the regular school board meeting agenda as presented, the minutes from June 28, 2022, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
And motion carries. Okay. Public comments. Did anything come in? Are you guys commenting? No? Okay. Thanks for coming. Action items.
Okay, so in your packets, I provided a memo that outlines some of the professional development that we're going to be working on this school year for the 22-23 school year, with the understanding that some of this work, there has been groundwork done pre-pandemic, and then they tried to do some of the work during the first year of the pandemic. And it was obviously for all districts throughout the country difficult with subs. And so there's a lot of information that our staff just in general need related to how to organize a professional learning community. In some places, the staff preferred to call it team planning time, but what it is, it establishes some non-negotiables within your learning. So we're gonna have some norms, we're gonna have some practices where we review student data, both academic data and behavioral data, and then we're going to ensure that we're doing practices that ensure all of our students grow and make academic gains. And so we have partnered with CISA too, partly because we just know it's a local area that we're looking at, but it's for the groundwork to set us up. You know, I'll have this conversation a little bit later for some more intense work I'd like us to do with our teaming through Solution Tree. But that's like I'm jumping up a few steps ahead, but this will give us some grounding work where all of our staff are using common language. So we have families that often call and say, well, what's the curriculum? What are we teaching our students? And there isn't a place on the website for families to go. And it's important that we are equipping our families to know what we're teaching our students, but more importantly, that our teachers know. And some of our teachers are not necessarily fully clear on the standards, partly because we have a lot of new staff. And I'm saying that's common in many districts. So I don't want people to think that Salem is an outsider in that what districts are facing across the country, there is a lot of new staff. But one of the ways you can retain staff is if there's strong professional development. And so this is an effort to get us where we're all using common language in the school. My hope is by the end of the year, or maybe early next year, we'll have that guaranteed and Bible curriculum. That's language, that's teacherese, certainly. But what that means is that when I go into Vicky's classroom, it's not a gamble that they're gonna get a different learning experience than if they went into Diane's classroom. We really wanna make sure that when they have the sixth grade experience, that sixth grade experience is enriching for all of the students. And so really, I'm hoping that the reason I'm bringing this, it is over that $10,000 limit, but it's because they're going to be doing 6 days of training, and then they're gonna be meeting with teams, whether it's grade level bands or subject bands. So the science department, K-8, already got in motion where we're talking with the high school that eventually it'll be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because we want to make sure that our scope and sequence really align strongly with the high school. And that when students are or families send their students to Salem, they're sending them to a district that is setting them up for high school and then beyond. So I'm excited about the work that you can see the contracts, the preliminary work, and that's just the groundwork. I have a lot of dreams.
Question.
Yeah.
We feed 2 high schools.
Yep.
Are you gonna be able to coordinate that? I mean, are they gonna have the same expectations at Central that they have at Wilmot and vice versa?
Likely not. So this is much more common in my previous, like in Illinois, it's often where there's many elementary schools or middle schools that will feed into separate high schools. So you do work where you're talking with both of those high schools. And so that is you're negotiating where are most of our students going. So predominantly that will be where we focus, but we'll ensure that our students who end up going to Wilmot, that we've set them up strong for that district as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. What else?
That's great.
This is great. Let's do it. You need a motion.
I move to approve the professional development agreement with CISA 2 for the 22-23 school year.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. Very exciting.
Okay, so this is something that we have to do every single year, the student academic standards. I provided a memo on what that looks like. And you'll see that I'm going to start to use language in those memos, and that memo can be shared with the community. That is, I want us all using common language. So when parents are asking questions or families have questions, they know the language that they need to ask to get a response. And the same way we're going to be teaching our teachers, when they ask this, here's how you answer. And so when we look at academic standards, we're using our standards from Wisconsin, this Wisconsin model. But what we want our staff to do is really identify those priority standards, again, so it's a guaranteed and viable curriculum, and that we're ensuring that all those teachers are teaching those specific standards. So right now, we're sending families to these websites, but we want to get much more specific And really, when we look at standards, you only want like you want a very few number of standards per area that students are going to be studying, because otherwise, because there's a lot, and it just, then you're having a very shallow learning experience. So I know I'm talking a lot, but this is stuff I'm excited about where we're going to take the district, because I want to be transparent in this part for our staff and for our families.
And then on the new website, you're gonna have all of your memos there lined up. Is that your intent?
I would
So
like to,
everything
if
is right
that's, if you're okay with me, because I think those are pieces of information that would be helpful for
Oh,
families.
definitely.
Okay.
And so, you know, a year from now, people can look back
Yep.
and see the stuff.
Yeah, and that's just adds to the transparency that we talk about, but we're also doing it.
Yep.
So that's great, thank you.
Great. Do you need approval?
Yes, this one does.
Anybody?
I move to approve the 2022-2023 student academic standards as presented.
So moved.
Second?
All those
Gotta
in
do one.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, here's another, these are just annual things, so you'll see this on the calendar, on our minutes every single year around this time. So this is the school calendar report, we just have to approve it from last year. You can see the number of hours that are required per each area for kindergarten, middle, and high school. This didn't change. In fact, the only caveat that I changed between this slide and last year's slide is that we didn't have any waivers necessarily, so we just have to approve this.
We got one more than was necessary.
That's right.
Nailed it. Great.
I move to approve the school calendar report for fiscal year 2021-2022 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. You guys are crazy.
Well, we're having fun here.
Just great.
Okay, is that you?
Yep.
Yep, okay, yep.
So just like the last one, this is another annual report that we have to report to DPI every year and then get approval from the board. So this is the pupil transportation report for the 21-22 school year. It also includes summer school from last summer, the 2021 summer. The image I put up on the slide kind of shows the last 4 school years. And you can see that the 2020-2021 school year actually took a big dip. Last year, our ridership was down. And, you know, one of the reasons was that it was because some parents, or more parents drove their kids to school or encouraged their kids to walk. Our ridership did jump back up this year, almost to pre-pandemic levels. So that will result in a higher reimbursement next year. Just for context, we do receive about a little over $22,000 per year for transportation aid. So with this increase, we would likely see about a $3,000 increase next year, pushing that up to about $25,000. So we spend a lot more, hundreds of thousands of dollars in transportation, and we only get reimbursed at a fraction of that. But just wanted to keep you in the loop and let you know how this impacts the finances. These are all Salem students that are transported. The only requirement to be counted in this report is that you have had to been on the bus at least one time. So our bus contractor, Dousman, does counts throughout the year. And with that, then that's how we get these numbers. And it does not include special ed transportation because that is aided separately. So I just wanted to provide that information and hope that you approve the transportation report. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
It's just like one of those things where we could have like a spirit day, like everybody rides the bus on this day. So we can like bump that number up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's already, even if we bumped it up a little bit more, we might get a couple,
Couple
maybe
bucks.
another $3,000 out of it. It's not gonna change our financial situation, but, I mean, that was one thing that was tossed out. Somebody was like, oh, maybe you should just encourage everybody to ride the bus on one particular day.
Right.
That would also likely overwhelm the bus drivers and maybe cause the routes to take a little longer too, but, yeah, definitely something to consider.
Yeah, and of course, that would be voluntary.
Of course.
Of course.
Yes, oh yeah.
Just wanted to throw that in.
Stop planning parties, Ted. Keep,
It's my job. I
keep
mean,
it
Yes.
up, yeah.
I move to approve the 2021-2022 school pupil transportation report as presented.
So moved, well done.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Just made it.
Motion carried. Larry, you're up again.
All right.
Up.
Now we're kind of going back to that short-term borrowing or temporary borrowing as it's phrased here in this resolution. So Wisconsin statute 67.12 does allow for school districts to temporarily borrow money as needed to meet immediate expenses of operating, maintaining public instruction in the school district. Cash flow revenues don't always match up with expenses throughout the fiscal year. Steve alluded to that earlier. Our big sources of money are state aid and property taxes. The first state aid payment doesn't come until September, and it's a smaller state aid payment, and then the larger state aid payments don't start till December, and then throughout the rest of the school year. Property taxes, the first one doesn't come till January, so we don't receive a bulk of our money until, December, January. So there's usually a short period, usually from Thanksgiving to about Christmas time, where we are kind of low in terms of cash. So what we've done recently is worked with Community State Bank, who we bank with. They provide us money on a temporary basis. I look back over the last 5 years, and we average between about $2,000 and $5,000 worth of interest payments to them just for this short-term borrowing. Typically, we're borrowing, in the realm of $300,000 to $500,000. And that's just to meet payroll on a couple of those payroll in Thanksgiving and Christmas. Last year, the board approved borrowing of up to $1 million, but CSBs, or community state banks, approved us up for up to $2 million. There's no additional cost. So I did increase the resolution for this year up to $2 million, though we won't need that amount unless there's any extreme circumstances. But I just thought if there's no extra cost, we might as well have it there as a safety net. And then as I mentioned, we are rolling over that positive balance into fund balance, so it's likely that we'll even need to borrow less. And then in future years, if that were to continue, we might not need to short-term borrow, but we're not at that point just yet.
Marquez, I noticed the interest rate is 4.250%. How does that compare to last year?
They actually froze it at the same amount as last year, but they said that next year it's likely going to be higher. So at that point, we can review what we want to do. Or as I mentioned, if we do finish next school year with a positive balance and it rolls over, there's a chance we might not need to short-term borrow in future years if our fund balance can cover that short-term or that period where we are low on cash.
And my second question, and this is more of a thought-provoking question, and that is, because we don't get money from the state, from DPI, until November-ish, right?
Well, they do a small state aid payment in September, and then they do the first large payment in December.
Has there ever been discussion in your experiences here in the state? I mean, I've lived here for 20 years, but I don't know the answer to this. To have school districts talk to DPI about expediting these funds earlier, so we and other school districts don't have to do short-term borrowing and pay interest.
I do believe it's come up in conversation. I think there's a couple things at play. One is all this is based on student enrollment, which doesnn't get done until third Friday of September and isn't reported or doesn't have to be reported to DPI until the middle of October. So there's like that timing issue to determine what everybody's state aid is. And then I think the other issue is I think the state does get. I think the big thing is, it's not until October 15th that the enrollment is determined by DPI and the state aid is determined. And then I think there's that delay. It probably could be moved up to November, which would help us. and I know that's come up a few times at the state assembly and at the state level, but as far as I'm aware, I'm not sure if there's any real chance of change in the near term.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Do you want to make a motion?
Sure.
Move to approve resolution authorizing temporary borrowing of up to $2 million.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
That's a lot.
That would require your signature.
And then if Dana and Steve could sign that before the end of the night, that'd be great.
That's right, we're doing it right now.
You got it, Marquez, whatever you need. Okay, reserve more? Is that you?
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So this is, I think, my last speaking slide. After this, I will mute myself. Last week, or maybe it was the week before, I'm already losing track of the summer, Dr. Vicki King and I met with More Strategy Partners. They had actually been meeting with the previous business manager or director of business services here at Salem, Sue Jarvis, prior to her leaving here. And then when I came on board with Salem, they met with me last year and then a couple times since then, just kind of asking if we've kind of looked at our employee benefits package and looking at ways to optimize it, particularly in the cash in lieu and the HSA payments that we make. So a lot of this was kind of new to me. I had never really thought about it. Most districts, do offer HSAs and or cash in lieu, and I'd never really considered the tax components of it, but just to add some context, last year we paid out $225,000 in cash in lieu payments to our employees. That's on a $5,000 per eligible employee basis. And those payments are subject to FICA tax, FICA and income tax, and the FICA alone comes out to $382.50 per employee. So per $5,000 payment, $382.50 is just wiped off of that amount right off the bat going to FICA. Additionally, the employees have to pay income tax on that. So depending on where their tax bracket is, that payment is getting reduced even further. And then we are also paying that FICA on that amount as well. So that ended up, so in total, that's $225,000 in cash in lieu payments were reduced down to $190,000. And that's even before you factor in what people are paying in income tax on that. So I never really factored those things in. And so this meeting with More Strategy Partners, they kind of walk through different ways to better optimize your employee benefit packages. And one way to do that is through this VEBA trust. So it's a voluntary employee beneficiary association. That's kind of where they specialize. Essentially, they would open a trust and we could make deposits into there, and those are tax deferred. You could do cash in lieu payments, you could do HSAs. And so that was just one way that they presented that we could optimize and save our employees a little bit more money, save us some money. And so they presented that with us. They also have a longer term plan, and I know we're in discussions with our employee benefits, and obviously we need to be strategic in the years coming with inflation as it is and attracting and retaining employees. So I've met maybe 4 or 5 times with them. I know that they work with several other districts in the states. I've contacted those districts just to make sure that they've been happy with their work with More, and I did get positive reviews. And so kind of taking that first step with kind of optimizing our employee benefit package would be this service agreement with them. It's a one-time fee to establish this VEBA trust, and then I think it's a $7,000 fee. And then moving forward in the future, there would potentially be additional fees, but they do have a performance guarantee that their fees would never exceed our savings. So it's kind of like a win-win situation for us. Obviously, I know there's other things that need to be determined by the board and by the administration for compensation and benefits for this upcoming school year. So this is just the first step in the process, and obviously, we would keep you, we regularly update you and then check in to make sure we're all on the same page. But Vicki and I both met with Moore, and I think we're both in agreement that things maybe aren't, people aren't complaining, but they could be better, and ultimately it could save us money and save our employees money.
One quick question. I see the targeted plan effective date is January 1st of 2023. If we were to ever go to a fiscal year with regards to benefits, can this also be changed with regards to this?
Yes, and so that agreement was written with the current plan in mind, but obviously, if things were to change, it would be adjusted, to the July 1st or September 1st, or if our insurance renewal date did change. And then Moore has worked with districts to transition as well. And so obviously with that transition comes issues with hitting deductibles and things like that. And school districts have offset some of that by making contributions to the employees' VIBA trust account. And so they have worked with districts in that transition. So they'd be another partner to help us explore that transition and hopefully make it a smooth one.
Sure. And obviously I make that comment only because we've talked about, the possibility of changing the calendar, if you will, for our insurance to be fiscal rather than starting January 1st and going to December 31st. So,
Correct.
okay.
And I appreciate you're making the effort to try to improve the financial situation for our staff without anybody complaining about it. That means a lot to me. I like that.
I agree. I feel like if you didn't know, probably 98% of the staff are unaware of the potential savings that could come from something like this. Yeah, that's
I feel
great.
like it's such a
And Jack,
strong.
that was kind of one
oh,
of the
sorry.
things I told Vicki, I was like, we don't have to do this because nobody's really complaining. But once I'm aware of something that can be improved, it's I don't know, it's in my nature to kind of explore it and then, make that step. And, I just want to be able to make sure we're maximizing things for the district and for our employees.
Yeah.
That's
He's
appreciated.
terrific, by the way. He's terrific to work with. But this is, again, that idea of like that retaining staff, finding ways to keep them here. My long-range plan, time my evaluation to keeping staff here. I think it's important that we keep the ones we have. And Marquez has found really, I would say, I would shout to many other districts, you may want to start looking into Vivas because this is a great way for staff to
Don't go
maximize.
too many districts.
Yeah, that's true.
We want to keep them here, right?
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
I move to approve the agreement for services with Moore Strategy Partners.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
Thanks, Marquez.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Go on mute now, okay?
Yeah.
Go drink some orange juice.
Gary. Nice. Resignations.
Okay, so the way we could do this, I know that we would approve, do motions for each resignation and same with the approvals. And I have it set up so that we can do it the way we've been doing it. Or one of the things I would wonder if we're gonna have a lot more talking points related to, I'm gonna need discussions around how we're gonna be using our ESSER funds, how we're gonna be using some of the finances that we have on some of the big projects that we have going. And I'm totally fine with staying here a long periods of time for all of those things. But I was trying to find ways to condense it in a way that the families that do show up, that they can start, they're gonna stay and listen, and that you get the discussion that you want on some of those really big, heavy items. All of this is still transparent because salaries, all of that is all public record, and it's there, we can still see all those pieces. But the way I've set it up is that you would approve the resignations as presented. You're not breaking any rules. I've got permission that this is allowed. Otherwise, I have the slides set up in a way that we'd motion for art, we'd motion for SPED, we'd motion for the network. So I wanted to offer that here.
I have no problem with doing it as a group.
We're
I
agree.
agree.
I think that's great.
Okay. So then we have the art teacher, Sarah. This was a person that we've talked before about. She's has left. Our resignations for our special ed teacher and Andrew Curzon, our most recent, the network's IT specialist.
Go ahead, Steve.
No, please, Jack, you do.
Move to approve the resignations as presented in the board packet.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
Okay, so we have a 4K teacher. These are like the 4K teachers, like we had a lot of applicants for it. She's a terrific hire. I can tell you her salary, it's in the packet but again, this is public record. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm just trying to condense the amount of time we spend. I know I'm spending more time explaining all this.
Well, just this
It's
one.
just one
Yeah,
stuff.
yep.
It's your first meeting, you can do that.
I move to approve the new hire contracts as presented in the board packet.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I say I love the Facebook post, like welcoming the new staff that are.
So
It's
great.
really cool. If anybody hasn't seen those yet, it's great on the Salem Facebook page.
It's nice to
Yeah.
see their face and the nice little
Like
description.
a little description of them personally. Yeah.
So great.
And they're still gonna do I didn't know they did this, but they're at the board meeting, I think in September, they come and they're gonna do their little introduction here too, so. I've got some plans to stick some little gift certificate underneath the seat, and then when someone sits in it, so we can get people to come, they'll get a prize, they won't even know, you have to be in but to get people to come out,
What about our seats?
I mean, yeah.
We got the cards from,
I'll just check.
Shoot, but this is the plan this is for September. All right.
there are no gift certificates.
No lottery tickets, nothing.
You didn't get any.
Cheap card.
You just got a card. The art of handwriting things, though. I'm trying to bring it back. All right, so we have an action item, and this is a product of the work that.
Yes.
Policy, yeah.
Yeah, and at the committee meeting, we talked about, well, from time to time, there are requests for the naming of a facility, a room, a classroom, for instance, or the LGI. A few years ago, there was a proposal, an idea. So as it says here, from time to time, the board may wish to commemorate. And Jack, maybe if you could follow up, because I think that the recommendation that you made on the committee was an excellent one in that second paragraph.
The Buildings and Grounds Committee is going to take care of this, looking at this. We're going to examine it. We're going to take input if there's a recommendation to be made to the board. And we're going to consider that input very strongly. I think we talked about trying to keep this local. We want to get people who are just associated with our district, with our school. The whole national naming thing has gone into some problems these last few years. And when you get somebody who's here who's really done us a lot of good, it's worth it to have them be represented on part of our building. So, and the policy is probably a really good idea. I mean, before it was kind of haphazard. It would happen, it wouldn't happen, there'd be discussion, but this is pretty much set down in our rules. This is how we want to do it. So I guess it's up to us whether we want to accept this policy or not.
Well, this is just the first reading, so that we still have to have a second reading.
Right.
Jack, what current spaces here at Salem have a name? There's the library, right?
Two libraries.
The two libraries.
The Charlaba Library and the Marge Lemire Library. Char was a forever fifth grade teacher here, whose room was up in that area, and Marge Lemire knew everything about everybody in the main office and had done just about every job in this school, from sub to nurse to office worker. So, you know, those were both really strong personalities within our building. And so we talked about the limitations of naming, that they should just be certain spaces, like maybe a teaching space or a room, not an entire wing or a new building section, like the Nikolai Music Wing might not be a really good idea, but you know what I'm saying. We would discuss it in committee and then, of course, discuss it with the board. And we have some outstanding people in the community who have been a big part of what happens here in the school, not just staff, but board members, community people who come here and volunteer and spend a lot of their time working with kids, and we'd be
I
kind of
should
lost.
totally know this. Is there like information about those individuals like posted, like why this space is called, like who this person was and their contributions?
There might be a good idea to put a plaque up.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, but I mean, right now, I mean, we know who the individuals are right now, but I agree with you.
I had no idea, like that's why I was
having-
asking the question.
Yeah, having a plaque is important. You know, and let me say one other thing, and Jack already mentioned it, and we discussed it at the committee meeting, that on a nationwide basis, a lot of school districts are naming facilities for political people and for causes. And I like the idea of keeping it local, having it something that's local, not getting into the political world. And yes, I know people like to say everything is political. Yes, that's true, but this should not be political. This should be based on people in the community, people who have taught at the school, who have served on the board, who live in this community. And I think that should be the focus of any naming of any facility or space.
Great.
So based on that, I would like to move to approve the first reading of the new policy for naming school district facilities. That's what it says.
It's okay, it is okay, to do the first reading.
Right.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. And then this.
Okay, so now we're
yes.
yep, these are all the second readings.
Do we need?
I have to,
Okay,
yep.
do your thing.
We talked to Neola yesterday to confirm. So here we go. Buckle up. I'm going to do the way we did last time that Dr. Valenza did. I'm just going to read the board policy and then if you have questions, I'll stop. Otherwise, we're just going to. All right. So this is really technically just the second reading, but we've had our committee go through it. So that's why we can just read through the title. So board policy 0131, the bylaws and policies. Board policy 0132.2, administrative guidelines. These are basically, we can make changes when we need to internally. All right, so these are all the changes. Again, these are posted, so for all transparency, and in fact, Neola said in some cases, the fact that we have drafts, that's more than many districts ever do. Because it could create confusion for the community with the drafts out there. So that may be something you want to talk about, and we want to talk about at some point, maybe in that committee, is that having the drafts with all the red lines is not necessary. So I'm learning too. Okay, so policy updates for second reading consideration, 0100, so the bylaws under personal communication devices. 0142.1, the electoral process. 0142.5 on vacancies. 0143, authority of individual board members. We're deleting 0144.2, board member ethics. 144.3, conflict of interest. 144.5, board member behavior and code of conduct. 014, I believe that should be 0.5, or is that 4.5? 4.5, okay. Board member anti-harassment policy. (0152) on officers. 165.1, notice of meetings. 0167.3, public comment at board meetings. They're deleting the school performance report for 0174.2 because it comes up later. Under administration, 1130-3230-4230, ethics and conflict of interest. (1210) board district administrator relationship, excuse me. So the criminal history record check and employee self-reporting requirement is new, 1421. It's revised from 3121 and 4121. 1460, 3160, 4160 are all physical examination. And again, these are just different areas within the like staff administrator. That's why the numbers are the same. Okay, so under program, we have 2210 curriculum development. This is simply ensuring that at least once a year grades 5 and 8 and 9 through 12, they talk about the Holocaust. Under controversial issues for 2240, the update is just to increase the conversation related in the school setting. It's not discussing controversial issues. And it's related again to the Holocaust and other genocides. Under program 2261.03, the district and school report card, as talked earlier when that was deleted. 2266, non-discrimination on basis of sex in education programs or activities. 2430, district-sponsored clubs and activities. 2431, interscholastic athletics. And replacement policy 2700-01, school performance and state accountability report cards. All right, 3,000 under professional staff and 4,000 support staff. 3120, 4120, the employment of staff, so 4120.04, employment of substitutes. 3122.01, 4122.01, a drug-free workplace. Delete 3170, 4170, substance abuse because it's covered in a different location. 3215, 4215, 5212, 7434, use of tobacco and nicotine. This is just simply that we don't eliminate places like local gas station where they may sell those things, but we can still go to those retailers. 3216, 4216, staff dress and grooming. 3340, 4340, grievance procedure. 4161, unrequested leaves of absence, fitness for duty. And deleting 4162, controlled substance and alcohol policy for employees that transport students. Students, 5112, entrance age, so the immunization's covered in 5320, so it's just been, they removed the enrollment information. That's not statutorily required. 5113, open enrollment program, inter-district. 5215, missing and absent student. 5500.01, conduct in virtual classroom. 5500.02, student conduct on the school buses. And I'm just realizing I even made a note last time. I didn't finish like what the change of, it was just the change of number. Never mind, I was gonna say there was, I'm like, yeah, thank you. 55.
The cops coming for you right now?
Yes, because I did it
Just
wrong.
letting you know.
Thanks. 5220, disorderly conduct. Would make sense because the police are coming. 5720, student activism. 5880, public performances by students. Finances, 6108, authorization to make electronic fund transfers. 6114, cost principles, spending federal funds. 6146, post-insurance tax exempt bond compliance. 6152, student fees, fines, and charges. New policy 615201, the waiver of school fees or fines related to our McKinney-Vento and our homeless. Property 7100, facilities planning. 7450, property inventory, and 7455, accounting system for capital assets. Under operations, 8310, public records. 8450, control of casual contact communicable diseases. 8500, food services. Under relations, we have 9270, equivalent education outside the schools for home-based or private education. 9500, relations with educational institutions and organizations. 9700, relations with non-school affiliated groups. Okay, that was the volume 30.2 and 31.1 policy manual updates. Great.
I move to approve policy updates to volumes 30.2 and 31.1 as presented.
So,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
And so when talking with Neola, just so we know, like that, they do a large policy update twice a year. So we'll do this again. Sometimes districts choose to have a quorum in the committee, the first reading, so it counts as their first reading. So they only have to read all of those twice. So that's something that is something to be considered. That is something allowed. And because we do have it up on the website so everyone can read it, there is still that full transparency. I'm not saying we change anything, just know that we'll have a large volume again when they do more changes. Learn that there are some districts that haven't updated their volume since 2018, and so they're in for a long meeting. Oh my gosh. So we're at least in a better spot, because this is just where we were caught up and we're caught up again. Yeah. We'll get a new update here soon though.
I like the idea of having the quorum.
That is, yeah. That
And
would
make
save-
that the first reading. That would cut a lot of
Just
the
adding
red
one more
tape.
person, yeah.
Well, and that, if you remember, we still had a good discussion in that meeting, and we were able to kind of we took some more time to go through them. So it still allows for that healthy conversation. So, yeah.
I feel like a lot of it is non-negotiable as well, like
Yeah.
Yes.
it's aligned to state or federal
Yeah.
law, like
Yeah.
it's just tweaking language that
Yes.
supports that.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Oh, did we, sorry. Whew.
We did, motion carries. I thought,
I did make a motion.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you did, you're right, I'm sorry. Yes, we're good.
and motion carried, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Right, Ted, were you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wake Marquez up.
And
Poor
we do have a
Dan, or the
quorum.
people at home, they keep going probably back and forth on the screen. We're making them like seasick, sorry. I'm new, sorry. All right. Here are more policy updates for the second reading consideration. Again, I'm gonna follow the same process. It's basically a fluency lesson for me. 1422, 3122, 4122, the non-discrimination in equal employment opportunity. 1422.02, 3122.02, 4122.02, the non-discrimination based on genetic information of the employee, excuse me. 1623, 3123, 4123, section 504 ADA, prohibition against disability discrimination in employment. 1662, 3362, 4362, employee anti-harassment, and 5517, student anti-harassment. 2260, non-discrimination and access to equal educational opportunity. 2260.01, section 504 ADHD, prohibition against discrimination based on disability.
I move to approve the updated non-discrimination policies as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I know at the last meeting, when we brought the policies up, you explained that sometimes there were 3 numbers with the same final digits, but there are reasons that they're happening. And could you please explain that again?
Yep, and that was something I learned as well, so in the committee meeting, since I'm also a learner in this, but that was because for staff, we have certified and classified staff, some are for like the students and some are the finance department, so it's the same, it just carries for the different domains within education.
So like the
Organization.
1623 is this, and then 3123,
Yep.
4123
Yeah.
are just different categories.
Yep,
And
like when we look in our bylaws, we're.
23 is the same
Yep.
language, essentially.
So that's why we read it all together, because
Right.
it's the same. Otherwise, we would have read them individually for every single.
At 1 o'clock in the morning, we'd have gotten home.
Yeah. I liked how Connie did it, having it the way she presented it. That was a great learning for me to be a lot more efficient with time, so.
Oh, you guys remember Connie.
I hope she's watching.
Hi, Connie, if you're watching.
Okay. Okay, last informational item. So strategic planning, I wrote the memo on strategic planning that you have, and we'll make sure that is on the website as well. I'm gonna give you just the typical timeline and process of what strategic planning looks like, and then options, should we be interested in moving forward. I know during my interview process, I did talk a lot about this. One of the reasons strategic planning is important, I believe, for organizations, but certainly an organization in a space where we have this type of cash overflow, we're about to go into we're doing this building project, and we've come off the heels of so much, I would say, turmoil related to education in general. It's to help anchor us to a common sense of purpose and a common sense of if this is where we want to go as a district, the community has said we support, the students say we support it, the staff say, and the board say. It anchors us to. So when we make decisions about how we're spending our money, is that aligned to our purpose? Is that aligned to what we said we wanted to do year 1, year 2, year 3? So it allows us to have a big yes, kind of, we think of that big yes, the Simon Sinek, so we can have a really strong no in other areas. I have been a part of strategic planning from having options where you will go out and you'll kind of do a bid for a group to come in and they'll lead it and organize it. I'll be honest, in the board, the district level leaders, they're gonna still carry the bulk of the work. So you'll have it's a different face, and they're really excellent. I've worked with some really great consultants, but the bulk of the work still is in the hands of the district leadership to make sure the board is aware and that the community is involved. But the process, you would map out the timeline and the approach. You're going to start with, and different consultants will have you do some may start you with your SWOT analysis, which will have you go through your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I'll be honest, when I got principals asking, hey, I'd like to do this PD, or I'd like to do this, or with teachers just asking questions, or even families asking questions, I don't actually know what we need because I've only been here for a short period of time. I think it'd be important for the community to say, our students and our board to say, here's the strengths that we've identified. Here's our areas of weaknesses that we can grow. Here's some really great opportunities, and here are the threats we need to address. And then those threats can be related to interest rates increasing. Threats don't just be related to physical safety, it's psychological safety. Threats of staff leaving mid-year, threats of having an understaffed building. So threats kind of encompass more than just that physical safety and harm. But the mission and vision, it allows us to then start to, when we're in these meetings, and sometimes people get cynical about strategic plans because they just are on a shelf. I'm really, really big on making sure it's not going to collect dust, that we have low-hanging fruit and that we go after it. You're going to start to see me in next month. I plan to kind of push more information that our families can start to see, really transparent, see how students are doing with their assessment data, classroom data, because that to me is really important to say if our mission is to serve the Salem community, that we give them the information that they need to see it. So then the next we're going to do relevant data. So in that SWOT process, we would have Marquez would do a brief presentation to the board and to the community on here's where we are with our finances. We would have Steve from Buildings and Grounds, and we probably would have PRA and Myron present information on where we are with our facilities. And even though we did that, we've got a lot of data already collected from the referendum and that build. They would still present, here's kind of the timeline we're looking at. Because in that build, we've got spaces, if we think about it, we have spaces, like we're gonna have a green room and a maker space. But if we have these spaces that we don't, like we're not staffing for those spaces, they're not actually gonna be used as effectively as, there's just gonna be a space that we move tables around, and it's not gonna be used as effectively, and we're not using our taxpayer money appropriately. So they would do a presentation on that. We would have student services would provide information related to our students with this disabilities, but also our academic data, our behavioral data, and what we're doing to address and ensure students are coming to school ready to learn. So look at attendance, tardies, all of those pieces. I'm trying to think of other things, but those would be in that stakeholder piece where we give them information, and then now we're equipped to do that SWOT analysis based upon this information, not just hearsay, because sometimes what we pump out into like social media isn't necessarily 100% accurate. So we're gonna pump out accurate information, and now let's start to address really what we need to address. Then we're gonna set our goals, we're gonna draft a plan, and then we'll have that strategic plan. There are really beautiful dashboards. I remember when we were looking at the construction companies for Myron, I know Nick really liked one that had a beautiful dashboard, but in the same way, strategic plan, we will have a dashboard that has a goal. You have like 4 or 5 goals, goal 1, strategy 1, and we're gonna have, where are we on this metric? So families can go in and see, Vicki, you said this was important, this was year 1 work. Where are we on that? And I would expect you to say, Vicki, you promised that we would be moving in this direction. Yeah, certainly things like pandemics happen and they start to derail us, but that's why when you have a strategic plan, you can say no to other things. We can be agile and pivot in certain degrees, and we can go back to trusting in the plan regardless of what's happening around us. And so that's the why. What I would like to know, can we do it? Or if you're, like, do I have permission to start the strategic planning process? And if we do, there are 4 different options that I would suggest. There are more, but I didn't want like a slide with 8 things, unless you want me to present something differently and then look into something else. So 1, we could hire a consultant, and you can have them come in and interview, and you get to pick the person. I would say they are range at a low 50,000 at least, and some places they're higher than that, but that's a range. Some will go to 25,000, but then I feel like they're not actually even consulting anymore. But I don't want to diminish House. There are some really strong consulting firms, and I enjoy working with them. I'm happy to lead the process because I have led districts through that process. We could do a smaller version where we don't include the community. It's just an internal process. It's a truncated version, but I think going back to what you were sharing earlier, if we want to talk about that SRO conversation, this would be a space where you would talk, that would be a natural piece to have them a part of it. And then other districts, I know Wheatland, they do it where it's truncated, it's just the board. So we do a board retreat, follow the same process, but it's more, we would do the SWOT to you. We would present our information to the board, and then we would come up with our goals, and they would be really board goals, but that's how all of these would be one of the ways you evaluate me, but that's also so the community knows what the board is working on. It's a lot of words, so.
I think it's absolutely time for something like this. I think when you started with the CISA agreement earlier today and talking about that guaranteed and viable curriculum and the whole idea of becoming a place where we're ensuring learning for all of our students, that has to be reflected in the mission. Like, it has to be our vision has to align to that. And I don't think in its current state it does. I don't feel the need to hire a consultant. I think that comes into place when there's like ickiness that exists in the organization. You're new, like you don't have those long relationships in the building where that might play into things. I don't know what your thoughts
It would be
are.
one thing if you didn't have the experience in it, but you already do, and you need to learn anyway, so why not?
I do like the part of the board, not to add more work to our plates, I love the idea of a board retreat. I don't know that we would set goals that are different than the strategic plan, but I think we might set action steps or some projects that, like, short-term things that feed into the strategic plan.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I think option two, in my opinion, after reading all this ahead of time, is the smart way to do it, involving the community. And when you look at the three areas, academic data, learning and working environment, organizational health and climate, I would also include school safety in that category, and resources. I think you have the capability to lead it. I agree with Ted completely that we don't need to be spending $25,000 or $50,000 for a consultant. And also option two also very specifically talks about involving community members. And that includes, not just our staff, but the community. So that could also include, potentially a board retreat or a community retreat. I mean, some sort of event where we're talking specifically about the plan.
I think we need to realize that this should be your baby. I mean, I would trust you to do this, to take care of this, because you own this now. This is yours. You're here. We put you in charge. We hired you for your expertise. And I'd love to see that expertise take us through this strategic planning session and make it happen. None of us are closely enough lit to this building to get in here and say, well, we need this, we need that. You're here, you can get direct input from the people that actually work here, that and you have background in strategic planning, which some of us don't, and I don't want to do more work. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, this is something that I believe the people who are hired to run the place should be the main focus of. That's why they're here.
It would be one thing if hiring a firm was helpful to you, but you even said that too, like it wouldn't be much more helpful to you, so then why? That's how I see it, then why, then you're spending money on nothing. And from a community standpoint, I think one of the reasons, speaking of SWATs, is we are still a one school district. And one reason that we're out in the county is because we want the community to be involved. Where you cross the I, and I don't know enough about, KUSD, but that's the biggest difference, is you don't feel that you're as much of a community. So open it up. If the community wants to join, you're welcome. So it sounds like
Take the reins.
option two, it is.
Yay! I didn't know if we needed to motion that. I didn't know what to do, so I just put
I
it
would
here.
think no. I think
Okay.
it's just,
So we'll do
That's what you're
two,
doing.
and then I'll make sure that we have like retreats built in. I'll make a timeline, and that will work for all of your schedules, and obviously, I'll be pushing out quite a bit of information, not only social media, but I'll work with the press, because I do want to make sure that people know we're doing it so they show up. And if I need to incentivize by little stickers on seats to get people to come in, I want them to know that their voice matters. Same with staff. I remember doing this process in one district, and then I'll shut up. I heard we were doing one of the meetings with the teachers, and they didn't know I was eavesdropping. I totally was. And they were coming down the stairs, and they said, at least it's nice to know that this district's not just saying they're going to do something and not actually do it. It's nice that we're finally actually doing something. And that's what I want to hear our staff say. I think that's when they see us doing what we say we're going to do, we'll build trust. And that is a really important piece for me.
Yes, and the point you made, I mean, I've worked in school districts before where all the planning and all the time was put in for a strategic plan, and as you stated, which is very true, it ends up on a file, on a bookshelf or in a drawer, literally gathering dust. And I think that was a wonderful point that you made.
Yeah, this is great. Ooh, okay.
I think it's a big deal that you're bringing it up at the very first meeting.
Yep,
too.
I agree.
Like this could have been January, I think it's a big deal to us, and then to to
Just hit the
everybody.
ground running, I mean.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
You're moving.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm excited about it. I need something to anchor to, like I really do. I think people are like, wow, she's a lot. So I want to make sure my lot is grounded in what the community says. That's good. So, all right. Do we have committee meetings that we need to schedule? I don't know.
Do you have a need?
Not yet, but I think we will when we start the strategic, like we will want different committees certainly having conversations to help make sure and again, all those are open to the community, but just to make sure that we're kind of putting things in place where we should, but I don't have any need right now.
I do not see any either.
Great. All right.
Then our next regular school board meeting is August 23rd, 2022.
Calendar? Do we already have an approved calendar for next year's school board meetings?
Yes, we did that.
The last meeting when I
Yes.
wasn't here? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we changed
I
a
gotcha.
couple. Yep.
Right, a few meetings were
Moved,
changed,
yeah.
right?
Read the notes.
I will now
That's
that,
why he abstained.
now that they're approved, I abstained.
Perfect. I move to adjourn the meeting at 8:17.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and we are adjourned.
And thank you, Dr.